Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Look Forward. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Brad.
If you're watching on YouTube, I apologize in advance because I have the State of the Union up in my other monitor. So if they show anything like bright on the screen, it's going to wash my already incredibly pale face out even further.
Yes.
So that's something you guys have to look forward to. President Biden just entered the chamber in the House. So,
do you think that he will come in and say that the State of the Union is strong, or will he buck the trend and be honest?
I don't know. It's hard to say because again, he's a candid dude, but he's also relentlessly positive. So we'll see what happens there.
I'd love to see a president say like the State of the Union, like it could be better. Things could be better.
I mean, here's what I'll tell you. I can tell you that the state of Chuck Todd's current haircut is about as terrible as you could possibly imagine right now because they just showed him on the screen.
Ugh.
And he's got a fucking awful haircut.
Yeah, fuck you, Chuck Todd.
Yeah, I mean, it's always yeah. And forever. But just like, dude, like, I get that the hairline's like running away from your forehead. I understand that. I understand that could be difficult. Right. Jay knows exactly.
Yeah, I got out in front of it.
Look, embrace the baldness. It's okay. Like, it's okay. No one's gonna criticize you, but we will criticize you for having the shitty, like, fucking Caesar ass haircut.
Yeah, don't do that.
Thin hair that we can see your scalp in between your fucking follicles because it's not a good look, Chuck Todd. No. It's not a good look.
No, he sucks. On every level, if we're being honest. All right, so obviously we were out last week. Part of that was scheduling, part of it was purposeful, because we decided that after our schedules weren't perfectly aligning, things had just sort of started in Ukraine with Russia, and it was probably better to let that story develop a bit so we could come back with the severe hot takes as we do, a little bit more fully formed. So let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Russia invades Ukraine and
Ukraine fights back.
Yeah, shit does not go the way Russia thought it would. It's basically the story. Not even a little bit. Look, man, there was a quote. It was a quote from Vladimir Zelensky out in the streets when the Russians, I think maybe 2 days ago, tried to push another disinformation campaign, one of many, saying that, you know, this guy is a chicken shit and he bounced to Europe to hide. And he put out a broadcast. He was like, this is like me, like head of the military. Like, my other homeboys were all here. We're out in the streets. Like, what's up, motherfucker? We're still here. Like, we didn't go anywhere. Get the fuck out of here. And he was talking about like fighting and, staying with his people and all this other stuff, which is incredibly admirable. And then he says something that I thought was dope. It was just like, God bless our allies. God bless Ukraine. And it was just like, out. And he just like dropped the mic. It was like, let's go back to fucking fighting these assholes. Look, this week has been, and last week has been remarkable to watch. As I tweeted out today, for 2 years, we said, for 2 years, that we are overdue for the world to stand up to Russia and make them knock this shit off, right? At that time, we were talking about, spying and, these disinformation campaigns all across Europe and obviously across the U.S., meddling in other countries, elections and things like that, and annexing Crimea and, like all of these things, right? So actually it's been over 2 years at this point. And now, in the last week, with Ukraine taking the lead, the world is there and going, all right, we're here. Let's fucking do this. Mm-hmm. And they're winning.
Mounted up. Yeah, mounted up. Like, and that's the thing that I think is the most important thing to take from the first week of fighting that we've seen so far is not only are the citizens of Ukraine fucking balls to the wall right now, just like not fucking around at all. Not even with Russians, which, very much they are not fucking around. But like I saw a tweet today that they're taking like loiterers or like looters, I should say, looters and rioters and people like that are trying to take advantage of the situation, like their own people, and like fucking saran wrapping them to like lampposts and shit like that, just to be like fucking publicly shamed.
Like, don't do this.
Yeah, for trying to take advantage of the situation. So not only have they been pushing back in incredible fashion, but like you said, like almost the entire civilized world has pretty much banded together, and it's just like, we're not going to stand for this shit. I mean, fucking Switzerland is out here freezing Russian assets. Like the famously neutral Swiss are out here.
The Netherlands. We'll talk about it. The Netherlands is like, yo, here's some Stinger missiles. What's up? Like, the weed guys?
Like even countries like Brazil and Venezuela are in the UN being like, nah, like this shit ain't right. Like, you know, these guys are fucking authoritarian people themselves. Belarus, Putin's boy, like the back door they ran into. Putin's like, yes, you guys, your army going to join up with us and mount up? And Lukashenko's like, not so much.
I'm good. I'm good, actually. Kind of busy tomorrow.
Like you can hang here, but I'm staying in. I'm not going out tonight. Sorry. Sorry.
Have fun. Have fun.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes.
Even China is like not that China's doing anything to support sanctions and stuff like that, but they're even like, you know, this isn't a good idea, or basically like stop fucking around. Like you're causing disruption in the global market in general, which is bad for us.
Yeah.
So like they're not and now not only that, but and it's tough to talk about Putin in this case because Putin's such an unreliable narrator. We don't truly know why he's doing what he's doing. We can speculate, but we don't know for sure. I don't think he was expecting the unified response that he's getting. And when we're talking about like unified responses, we're talking about Finland's like, all right, we're ready to join NATO. Like, let's fucking do this. Germany is like, oh, we're going to finally get the 2% GDP on military spending. You know, the thing that American presidents have been trying to get us to do for like the last 3 decades, basically to no avail. Like, we're going to go ahead and do that now. I mean, there's so many things that, you know, that we've unified with, like they, you know, Germany canceled Nord Stream 2, the pipeline project that they were planning on with Russia, which is a big deal because again, Russia provides like 50% of their natural gas. Right. It's like, that is going to be painful for them to have to cancel that, but they're like, nah, like we're not fucking moving forward with this. Sanctions are coming fast and furious, and
we're going to talk about that.
Stopping. Yeah. But so like and again, to say nothing of the response on the ground where those guys are getting beaten back by normal people taking up arms, by, you know, like normal people are talking shit on soldiers on the street.
By the way, sorry to interrupt you. Biden just mentioned, he even said, quote, even Switzerland during the State of the Union, like, yeah, dude, even Switzerland.
Well, and I mean, like, what's the other fucking video? The video of the dude like smoking a cigarette, like disposing of a landmine, basically.
Dude, that video was crazy. Like,
this is like, it's like they're not done, and that's what happens when you get a country that literally 9 years ago, where like you had your puppet installed there, and they fucking took it to the floor to be like, no, like not just to defend their way of life and not to defend their country, to defend democracy, to defend choice in the country. And now you're trying to take their country away from them? Like, what the fuck did you expect to happen?
Yeah, look, there is an interesting thing going on, right? Which is, I mean, in many aspects of this smaller country. I mean, Ukraine's not that tiny, but definitely smaller than Russia. Everything is smaller than Russia. But fighting back against this sort of imperial giant, right? And it's cool to watch America be like, hell yeah, and like, hey, we're going to here's some money, and like, let's fucking do this, like, fuck the Russians, right? Sure, that's great. But let this be a lesson. Because there's oftentimes that we are on the opposite side of this. Like, we're not trying to necessarily annex a country, but we certainly involve ourselves in sort of these proxy wars in other countries, smaller countries, right, for our own benefits and things like that. So let this be a lesson. You know how this feels? How we're like, yeah, fuck those guys? Yeah, that's how a lot of countries feel about us most of the time, right?
True.
So,
I mean, case in point, like we went into Afghanistan 20 years ago to root out the Taliban, and now the Taliban's running Afghanistan. So, like, I mean, there's a lot of other reasons.
How did that work out?
Beyond that, but I mean, we basically spent 20 years doing a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, spinning our wheels.
For spending a lot of money and getting a lot of people killed.
Right. But, it's so I don't want people to lose sight of that. Sorry, my headphones are fucking freaking out. I don't want people to lose sight of that whole aspect, right? Which is that we very easily can be on the other side of these sort of situations. But that being said, it is wonderful to see Ukraine push back as hard as they are, and to see the West and NATO in general supporting them in the ways that they are, financially and obviously weapons wise. So let's talk about the West's response that has done more damage than any bullet could have ever done. Kicking these motherfuckers out of SWIFT. If you don't know, SWIFT is a messaging service that connects financial institutions around the world. And this was the biggest hit on Russia financially, right? Basically, I think taking them out of SWIFT, they lost access to like $630 billion of their own money that they were like, we're going to store it up and have that shit ready for war. And people were like, yoink. No, you're not. You got $5 left. They're like, oh shit. It's like 5 rubles, which is worth like next to nothing at this point. Which we'll get into.
It's something like all but 17% of their global assets are frozen right now, basically, and the 17% that they have access to is from China. Like that's basically it at this point.
That's it. Yeah. Which China could be like, knock it off. Like if it starts to fuck with their bottom line, knock it off. And because they freeze that, it's over. Like, what are you gonna do?
And what's important? So like everyone, like the common refrain has been like, sanctions aren't going to hurt Putin specifically. Like they're going to hit the Russian economy, which is going to hit the people. But it's also more importantly going to hit the oligarchs that he helped enrich and therefore keep him insulated in power. And there's a lot of folks out there who say, oh, like the oligarchs need Putin. So like if you hit them, they're just going to draw closer to him. But a lot of folks that understand that relationship say it's actually a little bit more balanced than you think. Like they need him, but he also needs them because they're out here running cover and giving him the actual soft power that he needs within his own country to run things the way that he wants to, because they control the industry basically. Like it's kind of funny that even though that they are like a kleptocracy at this point, it's kind of like some backwards version of communism. It's just that there's only like these people that control the industry,
right?
But
exactly.
They're the ones doing
but
it.
They're all getting paid. They're all getting super paid,
right? And it's still in service to the state, basically. But even those guys are starting to kind of be like, hey, like this isn't really fucking cool, actually.
Like, dude, right I'm the aluminum magnate, and I haven't gotten my sweet cash this week. What the fuck are you doing?
I mean, to the point where like, even and like this is the example closest to me because of the stuff that I follow. Like Roman Abramovich, who is a former Russian politician, very close with Putin, also owner of Chelsea Football Club in England, is thinking about selling the club now because he's getting hit so hard with sanctions in England that he's just like, this is fucking untenable right now to be able to control this.
I mean, look, I saw, we're going to talk about the sort of financial freefall that Russia's in a moment, but like I saw a whole thing about like them taking a ton of money out of Rosneft, like they're in a world of trouble. And this was the one thing that everyone was, this is going to work. Yeah, it's going to work. Like, look, as much as you can, I don't give a fuck who you are. You have to be honest, whether you're in the middle, you're on the right, you're on the left. By the way, I don't expect the right to give any credit to anything because they don't believe in facts. But
I mean, I don't expect the far left to give a whole lot of credit either, based on what we're going to talk about later.
Normal people, wherever you live, normal people, not on the far ends of anything. Biden's number one most positive thing that has happened to him, happened under him, as far as this situation goes, is his rallying of NATO. That was his number one fucking move. The second he got in was shoring up NATO, and it was clearly the right move, because we can all speculate, and I think with like fairly decent certainty, that if NATO wasn't all together, if let's say Trump had got reelected, this situation would have gone completely the other way, because NATO would have basically been like, well, I don't know, because you got an American president who's like, Putin's kind of a genius. It's kind of cool. Is it that bad? I don't really know where Ukraine is. I've never really heard of it. Which would have been a bunch of infighting inside NATO. And then Trump very well might have just been like, you know what? I'm kind of done with NATO. And then where does it put it? We have no level of backing, right? It would have been just a complete disparate mess.
Well, it would have weakened the response to Russia, because you would 100%. Not have had this level of unity in terms of sanctions. I don't know that Trump would have been out here championing, leading all these sanction charges, and you might have had, European actors imposing sanctions on Putin on their side, but you might not have had the same thing on the U.S. end, which then might have also, not had a lot of resolve for places like Switzerland and things like that have had to get kind of pushed into helping a little bit out of a position that they normally don't take in these sort of instances.
Right. And look, I think there is a 0% chance that the Russian banks are removed from SWIFT if Trump is still president. I think it's a 0% chance. Yeah. I just don't see it. Right. Every chance he got when it came to sanctions against Russia during his 4 years, he pushed back on. He was not a fan of it. I know Republicans will say, well, those sanctions still happen. They happen because Congress overrode him.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't happen because he was like on board with it. He wasn't at all. He complained about it the whole time. And it was only because even Republicans in Congress were like, all right, this is kind of bullshit. We got to put these sanctions in place. That's the only reason why they happened. They didn't happen because he wanted it to happen. They happened in spite of him. So I don't think they get removed from SWIFT if he's still president. Like, this idea of like Trump stopped Putin. No, he didn't. That's crazy to say that when you're also talking about how much they were like best friends and shit. Like, he didn't prevent anything. And I think one of Putin's big things is he was probably banking on Trump getting reelected. And then when he was
hoping at least.
Yeah. And when he isn't, it's like, oh shit. Well, I got to do this. I got to go now. Like, I got to go at some point. I don't have 4 more years to wait. Like, to hope that Joe Biden is knocked out of the presidency. I got to do this now. And so like it is. It's incredibly interesting to then watch. We can just jump right into this, watching Trump's response like to Putin and being like, oh, he's a genius, and then like backpedaling when he realizes the news is like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yes.
So it's just kind of interesting. What was your take on Trump's move there?
It tells you all you need to know when basically he got up in front of CPAC, because it's like, he wanted to backpedal from the interview that he gave last week when he was talking about, how much of a strong move it was that Putin, came across the border, and that's so strong that we should try that at the Mexico border and this, that, or the other thing, and all this other whatever nonsense he was saying. And then,
okay, dude, let's just invade a sovereign country. Mexico's like, why are you talking about us? Shut up.
When he was at CPAC, obviously, like, he had to walk it back because the situation had significantly changed. By the way, I love all the Republicans chastising and criticizing Biden for being like, hey, we have intelligence that says Putin's going to invade. And they're like, oh, this is absolute horseshit, blah, blah, blah. And then the invasion happens. And all of a sudden, like, those same people didn't have a mea culpa. They're like, oh, well, situation's changed now. I'm like, no, like, you can acknowledge that they were fucking right. And you're an idiot, you fucking dumbass. So I thought that was hilarious.
No, the reason why they do that, we all know the reason why they don't do a mea culpa. Like, they don't admit that they're wrong, right? They learned that from Trump. Like, never admit you're wrong, even in the face of absolute evidence, right? But they also have that perspective because they're like, well, we lie all the time about shit happening. How many caravans have been showing up during election time, right? So they lie about shit, politicize shit all the time. So they assume like, oh, I mean, of course Biden is politicizing this.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't real. Yeah, like, of course he's not going to invade, and he invades. And you're like, oh, fuck, he was right. Okay, maybe he wasn't politicizing this, but we can't say that. So let us just pretend like it didn't exist. Like, it's fucking weird.
But Trump's response, though, was basically, oh, Ukrainians are brave. Didn't, of course, criticize Putin because you can't take down your meal ticket. But all you need to know about Trump's response is when he was at CPAC, he basically was like, drawing the line that was like, oh, if I was there, this would have never happened.
Fuck off.
And basically, I think I don't know if he was interviewed after or what was going on. I can't remember if it was during a speech or in a press thing that he did afterwards. And someone asked him, like, what would you have done that would have prevented this from happening? And he's like, oh, I definitely would have done stuff. I'm not going to tell you what it is, though, but I definitely would have done stuff, and it definitely wouldn't have happened. As if he needs to keep this
yeah, why is it a secret, dude? Like, why is it a secret?
Like, you're not the president. It doesn't fucking matter what you would have done. Like, you could tell us. Like, it's not like this bullshit you tried to pull when you were president. Be like, oh, I can't give away my plans. I'm not gonna tell my plans to you because then they wouldn't be secret plans and they wouldn't be awesome. It's not that I don't have plans. I just can't tell them to you.
Can't.
But like,
not that I don't have a girlfriend. She just lives in Canada. She doesn't live around here. She doesn't live.
All of my friends are around me, laughing just off camera. They're all here though. My friends that I like hanging out with. But no, like that was his literal response. Like, I definitely would have done something. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I definitely would have done something, and this wouldn't have happened. Like that. And
Republicans listen to that and they're like, nailed it. This guy, he's a genius. He's a fucking genius. Holy shit. Like, dude, he's pulling the Republican 2010 midterm move, right? It's like, do you guys have a plan or like, why should we elect you? Oh, we have plans. We have many plans. Okay, yes. What are the plans? Well, we don't want to talk about it right now. Elect us and we'll tell you.
Oh, it's not going to be.
And
it's not going to be. It's not just 2010. Like, it's literally been Republican policy over the last 12 years. That was the repeal of ACA. Oh, we're going to replace it with something better. What are you going to replace it with? You'll find out when we pass it. Like, no, like, you need to tell us, like, what you plan on replacing.
They're a wild group of people, man. But again, there are people who listen to that and go, that makes sense. Yeah. Like, we gotta just let them take our lives in their hands with no explanation and just see if it works out.
Okay. Jay, it's not a coincidence that these are also the same people that subscribe to the fucking life edict of let Jesus take the wheel.
More on that later. Just
let this omnipresence guide you in your life, though you cannot see or hear what he wants you to do.
Yeah, and definitely let go of your steering wheel in traffic.
That's right. Nothing bad ever happens. I've seen Fight Club. So like his response was as telling as it could possibly be. But just watching the entirety of responses over CPAC was fucking hilarious to me because again, they couldn't, like, they were trying to thread the needle in between criticizing Biden without showing support for Russia and but also without insulting Vladimir Putin. Like it's just like
right.
Fucking zigzag.
But when it first started, and that's also telling too, right? Because when it first started, okay, there's a timeline we have to talk about, right? Which is tremendous. What day does CPAC start? Like
it was like Friday, I think, last week.
Friday. And I believe Russia got pulled out of SWIFT like Thursday. Because that really matters, right? Like that timeline really matters because it was, look, maybe Russia's not so bad. This is the Republican Party, like Russia. We love these guys. They're Christians. They like quite literally refer to Putin as the lion of Christianity. I'm like, weird, very weird, but okay, right? So they were all like super kind of like pro Putin. It's cool. Ukraine has secret documents. Like they were all in all that bullshit. SWIFT removal happens, And everybody in the Republican Party is like, let's kind of like, maybe there's a bit of nuance here. I don't know. Tucker Carlson was the prime example. Literally video of this guy saying like, I'm rooting for Russia. I am. I mean, why shouldn't I be? I mean, he's never called me a racist. I'm like, that. So are you implying?
Meanwhile, 2 days later, why would you get the impression that I wanted?
Right, that's what he said.
Supporting Russia.
That's what he said. I'm like, yo, there are cameras in front of you, dude. Like, but he knows that his viewers will never go look at that footage. They might have heard what he said. They might even remember it, but they just ignore
it. They memory hold it in 2 days, basically.
They're goldfish, right? They're just dumb goldfish. And so like he changed his tune. The second SWIFT came down, the SWIFT sanction came down. One of the convoys, we're coming to DC, baby. We don't have enough money or participants all of a sudden, so we're gonna have to cancel that convoy. Dude, really weird. Weird timing.
That shit started, I think, Los Angeles. It was done by the time they got to Vegas. Like that was supposed to be a nationwide, like cross-country trucking convoy, and by the time they got to Vegas, I think there was like 5 trucks, and they were just like, fuck it. Never
then
mind.
there was one truck in the convoy that made it all the way to DC, from my understanding, and because there was an interview done with the guy and him and his wife. They were driving this truck around. They couldn't find a place to park, and they eventually gave up. And according to the interview, they were just screaming at each other, like on the phone because they were so pissed. But yeah, all of that dried up. Mm-hmm. Again, all these Fox News people suddenly didn't have anything to say. I'm very interested to see if this keeps going, if Russia is out of SWIFT for as long as it is, and these sanctions are hard and they are meaningful for long periods of time. I want people to pay attention to one fact and one fact only. What does fundraising look like for Republicans? Mm-hmm. Right? What does their financial war chest look like when it comes to the midterms? Right? Because we got primaries happening tonight, right? Like Texas primaries tonight. Beto won, by the way.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Henry Cuellar, fucking basically Republican Democrat in Texas, is getting the shit kicked out of him by his Democratic opposition. So
good. But we are moving closer and closer. We're speeding towards that midterm. And if these sanctions keep going, like I think that they should, it'll be interesting to see. You'll be able to tell just how much Russian money is truly behind the Republican Party. Because it's a bit weird that the second those sanctions came down, all of these Republicans are like, let's talk about nuance. And I mean, Tucker Carlson, for him to back off of that made no sense. It made no sense.
But again, I have to remind you, and everyone listening to this podcast is aware of this, these are the same people, literally 2 years ago, that acquitted the former president for threatening to withhold aid from Ukraine. like that's literally something that happened.
Right.
Both financial and military aid that they need to prevent Russia from trying to invade their fucking country. And he did this to try to get dirt on a political rival.
There it is.
And they were just like, this is fine. This is no problem. But now we love Ukraine.
Oh, yeah, we're big fans.
We didn't think Russia would actually invade. Come on.
It's a joke. He's the lion of Christianity.
That dude's probably about as religious as Trump is monogamous, so I don't want to fucking hear that shit.
Or as Trump is religious. Like you can also add that. Like the only thing that dude prays to is money. Get the fuck out of here. So yeah, I do find that interesting. Like this has all started. Like Ukraine has been at the center of Trump world for a long time, right? From early on, or like sort of midway through his presidency, he has been pushing for this idea. Republicans, like the wackier sort of QAnon folks, have been saying that Putin is going into Ukraine to get these secret documents and get all of this information on Joe Biden to embarrass Joe Biden. I'm like, he's invading an entire country. Like, you guys really think a lot of American presidents that Vladimir Putin needs to do this to burn $20 billion a day.
Yeah, but say plus, you really think he'd invade a country to get fucking dirt on the fucking president's cokehead child? Like, come on, like,
who cares? Who gives a fuck? It doesn't
fucking matter.
Who gives a fuck? Hey, that guy's a piece of shit. Yeah, all right. Like, okay.
we concede.
Like, whatever, dude. Like, nobody gives a fuck. No one cares. So Zelensky actually wants a no-fly zone, which is interesting. He's been pushing the White House to do that.
Yeah,
Biden.
That's not a good idea.
It's not. And Biden has said that they are not going to put U.S. forces in Ukraine, and also not U.S. jets, which makes sense, because if you have a no-fly zone, you will come in contact with Russian MiGs or whatever they're still flying now, and you're going to end up having a dogfight, and someone is going to get shot down. And the second someone gets shot down, that is direct contact, and that is not what you want.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think someone made the point on Twitter, like, the term was so ubiquitous, especially during like Syria, that I don't think people understand what no-fly zone means. It's like, I think that a lot of people that are like, oh, we should totally do a no-fly zone, literally think that it's us telling Russia, now don't you go flying over Ukraine now, you hear? Like, you better stay in that area.
It's a no fly zone. Like,
no. But no, literally a no-fly zone means, hey, we're going to take out your anti-aircraft artillery so that you can't shoot down airplanes. And if you do fly planes in that space, we are going to take them down as well. And in another parlance, that's called an act of war. And that would be very bad to do to this country that we are trying to stay out of in direct conflict.
Yeah, we don't need, dude, like, Americans and Russians have never directly, like, we've had a lot of proxy wars, right? Like, we've never thrown down directly, dude. Like, and you don't want that. You don't want that.
No.
You don't want that. You don't want China involved. You don't want any of that shit. Absolutely not.
That's why the Cold War was the Cold War, is because we neither side had the gumption to go to arms to one another in direct conflict. And like you said, like, we fought it out through proxies in all sorts of fun places,
Afghanistan,
around the globe, Vietnam,
right.
all the hits. Right. We came close. Like, we came real close to Russia launching nuclear missiles at Miami, which would have been real bad. But thankfully we didn't. So,
I mean, I don't know. Like, Tallahassee's probably fine.
I mean, it would have accelerated what's already happening there anyway. So, I mean, half the people in Florida act like they've been exposed to radiation. So,
yeah, they're all kind of like that dude from RoboCop. It's been a long time since I've been in Florida.
But yeah, so that will not happen.
No,
the only
it's not a good idea. It's actually no. I get Zelensky's point, right? He wants to have as much military might as he can as a deterrent. I understand that, and look, I respect the guy immensely for what he's doing. You don't want this. You think you want it. You don't want this. You don't want this, because you don't want American troops to have to be there. Like, you don't.
The only way that we would get into direct conflict is if Russia attacked us first. Like, if they did something serious. And trust me, they are playing with fire. Earlier today, they launched a rocket strike against the Slovenian consulate in Ukraine and fucking destroyed it. Slovenia is a NATO member. Now, a consulate is not considered sovereign ground in a foreign country. So it's not like an Article 5 situation. But that's some fucking caustic shit to do to try to basically taunt NATO into trying to get involved in some way, shape, or form. But Putin doesn't want to be the guy that fires the first shot, essentially, or the first official shot.
You don't want it, dude. You look, I know we have had, our military is designed in a very specific way. I am not a military expert, right? I don't pretend to be. So if you're listening to this, you're like, well, actually, just relax. It's fine. This is my armchair quarterback situation here. I don't think our military is designed for like guerrilla warfare. We're not. Like, we are We are a broadsword in a lot of ways, as it was described in that movie, The Siege, which is a great film. The U.S. military is a broadsword, right? It is not designed for precision work, right? That's why we have a hard time in places like Afghanistan when we get into fighting guerrilla warfare. We are too big and too much of a force. Like, that's just not how we work. We can't go fucking town to town type of shit. Like, we can't. There's too many of us. However, we are built for a fucking all-out war with one country, like, and it's not a bunch of insurgents. We are built for that shit. And if that came to pass, that is a place you do not want to be. And Ukraine does not want to be in the middle of two gigantic armies just fucking going at each other. It's a mistake. And it would be a disaster for Ukraine. Like, they would get lost in that shit. Like,
I mean, it would be a disaster for a lot of the former bloc countries in Europe, because those would be the battlegrounds, essentially.
Yeah, no, you don't want it. You don't want it. Like, keep us sending money, sending arms, but you don't want U.S. troops anywhere on the ground in Europe or Ukraine. You just don't.
And the U.S. doesn't. I mean, the U.S. people, I don't think, would want that either. Like, we just got out of a fucking 20-year war. The last thing we need to do is to get bogged down in a war that we will win, but will have heavy casualties, plus possibly invite nuclear strikes on our West Coast, which would also be real bad if that was the case. So,
yeah, no thanks. No thanks, man. No thanks. I'm not interested in that. And look, you know, people are talking about, oh, Putin, is he crazy? Oh, would he do it? I don't know. But I do know that dude is like he's not doing well. Like, physically, he's not doing well. There's rumors that he has Parkinson's. There's also rumors that he has had he's had cancer. Actually, he was previously treated for cancer in 2020. So we don't know what his physical state is. And if he feels like this is his last ditch effort to bring part of USSR back together as a legacy, that makes him very dangerous. It does. It simply makes him incredibly dangerous. But I don't think he goes nuclear weapons, right? Like,
well, and not only that, but
I think it's a huge mistake.
I'm about to be wildly speculative. So this is me just shooting from the hip, no insight at all. I think that there's enough. I would hope, Christ, I would hope that there's enough people in the higher reaches of the Russian government that understand the massive downsides that would come with inviting a nuclear war with the West.
Right.
And I would like to think that if he got to the point where he was going to authorize that they'd be like, we're done. No,
go fuck yourself.
Like, you're done. It's fucking coup d'etat time.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. Like, you're done.
Yeah, I'd hope so, but there is part of me that hopes that if that happens, they clear house for a fucking leader of Russia who's not a piece of shit. That's the problem, right? Is everybody that's at the top is just a shittier copy of him.
Yeah,
right?
but without I don't think the sway though. But who knows? Because we don't really have a great insight to the inner workings of the Kremlin. So
or like internal Russian politics at all. Like, I don't know. All I know is he just keeps doing a castle move with fucking Medvedev like every couple of years. You go over here, we go over here. Like, that's it, right? Russians love chess. They'll get that. But
as Andy said, good thing he's term limited in 2008. Otherwise, we'd really have something to be worried about. Right?
Oh, here we go. I'm going to be president forever. No,
I guess so.
Not today. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, he had kind of done this, like, I'm putting my nuclear team on high alert, and everyone's like, oh, is this it? Is it? Holy shit, is this it, bro? There's all these memes and fucking, of course, like Americans in the face of peril. It's like, let's make joke memes and funny videos about being in World War III and hanging out with SpongeBob or whatever the fucking dumb shit.
I mean that is the culture now, Jay. That's all we have. Like,
nothing is taken seriously.
It's all we're gonna have in the history textbooks when it's all said and done. Is just fucking dank memes that talk about
just the dankest of memes. Like, we're on fire. Like, yeah, I know, but like, lol, right? Like, it's like, so like there is that aspect, right? Why does he put them on high alert? But that seems to be a general posture that the Russians will do, or Putin will do, to scare the shit out of people into surrendering. Because it's like, dude, I don't want my country to get nuked. But Zelensky's like, how about you suck my Ukrainian dick? How about that? It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, they told that Russian warship. Should we tell the Russian warship to go fuck itself? Hey, go fuck yourself, warship. Like, the Ukrainians aren't bothered by this. They have figured out the thing that kids are taught very early. You don't beat a bully by running. You beat a bully by confronting them. And 9 times out of 10, they're a bully that can't back it up. 9 times out of 10. Look, sometimes you confront a bully and they beat the shit out of you. Like, hey, don't take my lunch money. No, I'm going to take that shit. But like, sometimes you stand and you got your boys behind you. And that's incredibly important. You got a steel spine standing right behind you, and they are backing you. They are giving you money. They are giving you arms, and they are standing with you. We needed this. And look, I hope, and this next story is going to be about Russians' financial free fall right now. I'm hoping this goes long enough and it gets into a stalemate, but Putin refuses to give up and just bankrupts that fucking country. Good.
Yeah.
And that's not good for citizens. I don't take any like solace in those people suffering. But in order to get this guy out, he has got to lose the support of his people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, don't get me wrong, a lot of Russians don't fuck with this guy. But there are a lot who do, who see him as like this strong fucking leader. But it's hard to back a strong leader when you're in the fucking breadline, dude. Like, it's real hard to be like, no, this guy's really good. Like, I'm fucking hungry. And all I've been eating is eating fucking old potatoes in my sadness. Like, that's not enough to get people moving. That's when people turn on you. So,
I mean, to tie a bow on the nuclear thing before we move into Russian finances, like, the one thing that I feel pretty decent about as far as that goes, Putin is not a stupid man. Like, he's not going to do something if it's not going to benefit him. The only benefit that he could get out of actually launching a nuclear strike would be if he says, fuck it, I'm going down and the rest of you fuckers are coming with me, kind of thing. Because if he were to land a nuclear strike against us or another Western ally, the response for that's not going to be like, oh, we're going to back down and we're going to and we'll give you what you want. It's like, all right, you hit us with 100 nuclear missiles, we're going to hit you with 1,000. Like, that's literally what's about to.
Yo, you could shoot one and be like, I'm not fucking around. Like, well, I think you already did. Mm-hmm. It's a wrap, dude. It's a wrap.
And he's not stupid enough to realize that would not be the response.
Right.
Like,
he's not a moron.
Absolutely be the response.
Yeah. Like, let's do like, Switzerland did it. Well, I'm fucking sending a nuke over there. Dude, the second that shit leaves the fucking silo, there are 100 nukes coming your way.
Yeah.
Like, before you find out how much damage it did to Switzerland, your shit is on fire. You can guarantee it. Like, and look, the rest of the world is done, dude. Like, they've had enough. And I think one of the big responses, one of the reasons you're seeing such a hard response from the world isn't just because it's Ukraine. People are tired of being fucked with by Russia for the last couple of years, and they haven't been able to do anything about it. Because it's like, maybe it's hard to prove, or like, but everybody knows that's what's going on. And you can't use hard power to combat soft power. Like, if you're the victim, like, that seems like a crazy response. Like, oh, they're fucking with our election, let's fire off 100 rockets. Like, that shit, it doesn't really work, right? Because like, people don't understand the nuance of those things. So you seem like the aggressor, right? And again, Russia could be like, it wasn't us, and then you've already walked yourself into a fucking major catastrophe. But now that you have this, people can latch onto it.
People are being rightly critical as well, because people are like, oh, like, it's cool that we're all riding for Ukraine, but people need to remember this. Like, the next time it's a brown country that's under strife, because we never unify like this. And you're not wrong, but to your point, the reason for the unity around Ukraine is not because of Ukraine. It is because of the person on the other side of the gun, essentially.
Yeah.
Like it's more of a unity against Russia than it is for Ukraine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. So like we should all like really shore up that spine again when Saudi Arabia does some fucked up shit. Just saying.
Except we won't, because we have a little bit more economic dependability on that country. Just saying.
Are they that bad? I mean, we kind of like those guys, right? They treat women okay, right? Right? Are they doing that yet? Fuck. Just turn away. Don't look at it. Don't look at the information. Hey. Yeah, that's a bit of a hard one for the United States. Like, but the way my oil game is set up, I don't know, man. Are they that bad? Yeah.
Look, I get you, but how about instead of sanctions, we issue a strongly worded statement?
Right. Basically the same thing. Like, yeah, okay, dude. Like, get the fuck out of here. Can you imagine if we didn't do anything? Because that's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna do shit. They killed an American journalist with a fucking chainsaw, and we were like, that's wrong.
Don't you
Next
do that
question.
again,
Yeah.
Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah. How about you not do it anymore? Like,
sorry,
hey,
Prince Mohammed bin Salman. My apologies.
Yeah, my bad. MBS. I know you're it's AOC, MBS, MTG. We got it. Everybody's cool now. So let's talk about Russia's finances. Go ahead.
Did you know that the ruble currently is worth less than a penny?
I did know that, and I love that. That's part of the reason why I found this story. I was like, yes. By the way, Brad, did you know that I feel the ruble still worth too much? And I think, in the words of a guy from Entourage, I think I could go lower. Yes, I think you could. The ruble crashes, the stock market closes, and Russia's economy staggers under sanctions. Boy, did it. This was from yesterday. Apparently, as the day began, Russia's currency lost as much as a quarter of its value within hours. Scrambling to stem the decline, the Russian central bank more than doubled its key interest rate, banned foreigners from selling Russian securities, and ordered exporters to convert into rubles most of their foreign currency revenues. No, fuck that. What, you out of your mind? It's worth nothing.
So I just want to point out.
Oh, and the stock market has changed or has closed, and there has been in Russia a run on the banks. How good does these sanctions work? Holy shit. They destroyed their entire economy in an afternoon. It's amazing. It's an amazing situation.
In this country, whenever the Fed decides to increase interest rates, it usually goes up like quarter of a point.
Right.
Half a point. If things are really bad, maybe like a full point, from like 1.7 to 2.5 or whatever the fuck it is.
Right.
And when that happens, everyone in the country freaks the fuck out. It's fucking, thing the sky is falling. Russia's Federal Reserve raised their interest rates from 9.5% to 20%.
God damn. Holy shit. I didn't know what the actual number was on that.
Yeah.
Good Lord, dude. Good Lord. Yeah, so central bank more than doubled its.
So that's how things are going. And not only are economic sanctions crippling, part of a byproduct of that is just regular run of the mill commerce has been grinded to a halt there.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Like there were some images people shared of like Russian metro stations where people had to fucking scrounge for cash because Apple and Google both took out, their payment options to be able to use Apple Pay and Google Pay for like metro stations and stuff like that.
Hey.
So it's like now you're completely fucked.
Right. Look, these are small but very big things, right? Like culturally speaking, for the world, these are small but very big things. Apple and Android taking out, or Apple and Google taking out their payment system, that's important, right? That's actually huge. Disney's like, we're not showing any movies in Russia.
Yeah.
That are coming up. go fuck yourself. You get nothing, right? Like that seems small, but if Disney is taking a stance, right? You got to remember Disney is kind of the Michael Jordan of movies, where it's like, I mean, oligarchs buy Air Jordans too. Like, like they watch our movies too. So they're not going to they're not trying to fuck their money up. But they realize, and it's not even that like citizens in America were like, you better not release it in Russia, you fucking corporate assholes. They didn't say anything to Disney. Mm-hmm. But even Disney's like, if you allow this to happen, right? And not their movies playing, but if Russia is allowed to do what they're doing, what does that look like for the rest of the world? Do you really want these authoritarian regimes spreading out across the world like this? Because guess what? Can't play. And look, it does come down to money. Look how much trouble, you may not know this, but look how much trouble they're having getting their movies to play in China because it's an authoritarian regime. Does that spread from Russia into Ukraine, into other markets, right? We have to remember that the world is watching this and the world is pushing back. You know who's also watching this situation develop? China. Because China wants to annex Taiwan, right? That is, don't get that fucking twisted. Like, you might not be hearing a lot about China. China is paying incredibly close attention to what is happening. If that happened and they were allowed to roll in with no problems into Ukraine and everybody was like, whatever, like, I don't give a shit, and they were allowed to take it over, Taiwan would have been next, dude. But I can guarantee you China's like, no, we don't need that.
Yeah, let's hold off a little bit. Russia was banned from participating in the next World Cup that's happening later this year. They almost banned like Russian, like the international, Federation International Autosport, whatever, FIA, almost banned Russian and Belarusian athletes from participating in their series as well. Came really fucking close to that. So like it's there's a knock-on effect. And again, it fucking sucks for Russian citizens.
It does.
It's unfortunate for those guys. But again, the whole point is to make them realize that, hey, like, this is happening because your boy is fucking up shit. Now, sometimes that can have the opposite effect as well. Like, you can sometimes galvanize the people against you as a common enemy. But if the protests that we saw in Moscow were any indication from the first night of the invasion, a lot of Russian citizens aren't having this shit either. Like, they're fucking done with this.
Yeah, it was funny because the Russian government threatened protesters that they would be marked as terrorists if they got out in the streets. And again, like, you hear that, and then Republicans are like, no, that Vladimir Putin is like is a guy of freedom and I respect them.
We should do that here.
Like,
we should do that here.
Yeah.
What do you mean First Amendment? I don't even know what that is.
The amendments to the Constitution start at number 2, right?
and then it skips a bunch until you get to like 17.
It's like number 2, and like that's it. Like that's it. Number 2 is number 1, baby.
I heard something about guns and not much else.
That's right. So. Who gives a shit? So it says even as Russia and Ukraine delegates or delegations meet for talks at the Belarus border, Moscow's military offensive showed no signs of letting up. However, the decision by the United States, Britain, and the European Union restricting the Russian central bank access to more than $643 billion in foreign currency reserves has undone much of Kremlin's careful efforts to soften the impact of potential sanctions. This is what we were talking about. What Russia did, right? This is like
I'm just like the fucking hubris that it takes to literally invade a foreign country, and you're going to be like, well, this isn't possibly going to fucking backfire on us in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I guess that is the byproduct, as someone pointed out, of constantly getting away with it. Yeah. Like the fact that all the shit that they've done over the past, especially last decade or so, between Crimea, between fucking around in our elections and not really getting, any kind of punishment for that. Like, right. There's probably a part of him that was just like, yeah, we're going to be fine. Like, they're afraid of us. Like they're not going to fuck around with us at all.
Yeah. Mistake. Like, that was that was a terrible calculus, because like this, like they basically had stored it. Like, this is one of the things that I think Republicans don't quite realize that that's happening or did happen. Shocking news. They're like, well, why didn't he attack in the 4 years that Trump was around, right? Like, one, they're building up their military, right? Like, that's why they had like, it was 140,000 troops or something like that on the border, right? You got to build that shit up. Can't do it overnight.
Ukraine had a presidential election that you could wait to see if someone that would be more sympathetic to your interests happened to get elected as well. So
didn't work out well. Apparently, fucking Ukrainian Jon Stewart is not fucking around. So you know, they had basically, they were trying to shore up their military. They were also trying to shore up all of this cash, right? They were banking the $643 billion so that they would have that. They knew sanctions would be coming, obviously, but they wanted to have this money like, all right, cool. But we got this pillow that we can still run the country, even though we have like a GDP of like Italy, like less than Italy, which is crazy.
less than that.
Like quite literally they do. Yeah. And so they thought, hey, if we gather all this cash.
I think as far as per capita, I think I heard the other day, they're on the level with like Panama in terms of like per capita GDP.
The country is run to shit. It's run to shit, which is a shame because like the Russian people are like very smart. like they've accomplished great things in science and stuff like that. And they're just,
they gave us Tetris for Christ's sake.
They did. That's their greatest achievement. Everyone knows that.
I mean, you could argue.
Tetris 99, fucking genius.
Space flight. You know, they were the first to orbit, all that jazz. But no, Tetris. Think of how strong Tetris has been over the last 3 decades.
Unbeatable. One.
Truly,
one could say unbeatable. True legacy. But you know, the idea of them sort of storing up this war nut, right, of almost $700 billion. But the audacity to believe that you could do this and leave it in the hands of central banks. That, to me, that's that hubris you're talking about. They're like, it'll be fine. They're not going to mess with that. No, NATO was like, yoink, what the fuck, dude? Like, you're not getting access to this money. Fuck off. And they were like, oh, shit, we didn't think of that. But that's the whole point that you're talking about. You're getting away with everything for so long that you just forgot that maybe you should have kept that money a little tighter to the vest.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And that was a huge mistake. There is talk that Russia is losing $20 billion a day. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So good luck. They're also having issues, not on a financial aspect, but in a military aspect, that like, they sent these young boys over there to fight, and they were just like, it's a training exercise. And then they were like, all right, we're going into Ukraine. And they're like, wait, what? Huh? And it was like, no, you're going to fight. They're not prepared.
No, they're not prepared. A lot of their army is conscripted. Like it's not a whole lot of volunteers in the ranks right now. And the point that's also been made is that the Russian people, so like when they annexed Crimea from Ukraine, the people were a lot more behind that because the Russian people generally saw Crimea as Russian. Like they thought it was rightfully a part of Russia because it was, you know, Russian speaking and it was a historically Russian area of the country. So they were willing to back that. They don't really want to fucking roll tanks into Ukraine and take on Ukrainian citizens and take on Ukrainian people who they have no problems with generally. Like they don't fucking hate these people. A lot of friends and relatives, you know, on both sides of that wall as well, and so you're not getting the buy-in. And I think that America's been such a fucking warmongering country over the last several decades that we often discount the costs of war. We don't really factor it in our calculus. We're much more concerned with dollars and cents than with the fucking human costs that wars cost this country. And Russia could take Ukraine if they wanted to. Like they absolutely could. They have more resources. They have more people. They have they would win a war of attrition. But how much would it cost you? I mean, there's already something in the neighborhood of like 5,500 Russian soldiers dead right now.
Really?
That's the number I heard. Again, take that all with a grain of salt because I don't know how accurate any of the reporting that we're getting, because war invites misinformation. That's just kind of the way it goes. But the last report that I saw, and again, it's from the Ukrainian government, so who knows how fucking true it is.
We killed a billion of them already.
Yeah, that was the count that they gave. And so,
wow,
how many people?
Nuts.
How many people are you willing to lose?
That number is that number is infinite for Putin. He doesn't give a shit about those people.
It is, but here's the thing. So the end game here for Putin is that he takes control of the country, installs someone sympathetic to his wants as president, and just rolls out and is like, all right, you run it. Everything's good to go. Let's roll, boys. You think the Ukrainian citizens are just gonna be like, we're just gonna let this ride out, see what happens? Like,
they will drag that person out of the building and murder them on day one.
Yeah,
you gotta remember, this is the same country that created a grandma who was handing out sunflower seeds to people and said, handing them out to Russian soldiers. This is an old woman handing them out to Russian soldiers and saying, "I hope that these sunflowers grow out of your dead corpse when you die."
Yeah,
I
mean, again, we just saw the byproduct of a conflict reliant on constant occupation and how that all works out for you. From a military that was a lot better funded and a lot better drilled than anything you've got going on right now.
Right.
And it still blew up in our face.
It doesn't work, man. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like, you can't, and like, I believe, Iraq and Ukraine have very similar like populations and like population wise and like size of country, and it's like, we couldn't hold that. You can't hold this. You can't. No. You simply
can't. we have the resources to. Like, we were fucking bleeding money into that conflict like we had it to spare, because guess what? We did. Like, we could easily spend $6 trillion, and it's like, whatever. Not a problem. We got this. And at the end of the day,
Russia cannot.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what did we have to show for it? Fucking embarrassment, egg on our face, and a lot of dead soldiers left behind, and a lot of dead Afghans as well.
Yeah,
to go along with that.
A lot more of them than us, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, but just like, unfortunately, as a generality,
a lot of death.
Yeah, a lot of death
for no tangible change in the status quo. Like, the Taliban were running shit before, and the Taliban are running shit now. Like, it hasn't changed too much.
Yeah, congratulations, zero things gained. So
yeah, so while Putin has the forces necessary to conquer Ukraine, he definitely doesn't have the forces necessary to hold Ukraine.
Much like a reservation on Seinfeld, anybody can give a reservation. It's holding a reservation. That's what matters. Next up, I hate this headline because this headline's obnoxious. So I'm going to ignore the first four words.
Incredibly obnoxious.
Yeah, and it's not fair. The rest of the headline past the first 4 words is in fact fair. Democratic Socialist group blames the U.S. for Russian invasion of Ukraine and demands NATO is scrapped. Quote, U.S. must end its imperialistic expansionism that set the stage for this conflict. So the Democratic Socialists of America think that the U.S. should remove themselves from NATO now. You know what? That's on brand, because this is also a statement that ignores all reality, as many people who support the DSA as their Twitter profiles often do.
I have to point out,
it's fucking stupid.
My fucking head hurts, but I'm going to point this out. So, from about the end of World War II to 1991, there was this pretty significant power in Eastern Europe known as the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union basically got a whole bunch of their fucking bros together and said, hey, communism is pretty cool, and we think that you're going to fucking hang out with us and be communist, and we're going to fucking occupy your country slightly, and we're going to make sure that you're dependent on us for economy, and we want to expand our reach, because communism is the fucking coolest. We're even going to take this country, Germany, and divide that fucker in half. And we're going to have 2 sides on opposite sides of a literal wall, because communism fucking rocks, and everyone should be communist with us. And we're going to make sure that we flex our military power to fucking be communist too. And yet it didn't really expand very far outside of that, block of countries that you have in Eastern Europe that stopped right around, where Germany is. And there was a nice big, wall of fucking liberal democracy standing up against it and not letting it move an inch further.
Right.
And the reason that fucking, we'll call it a Cold War, for lack of a better term, didn't erupt into actual fucking conflict was for one reason and one reason only. And that one reason, may surprise you to hear this, is NATO. The fact that NATO existed and the fact that you had a fucking organization that existed that said, hey, if you fuck with any one of us, you are going to fuck with all of us.
Yep.
Acted as a deterrent from shit escalating further than it did, which, by the way, the escalation of that conflict would have been thermonuclear war across the entire fucking globe. That's what would have been the end result of that fucking conflict, because NATO existed. Now you have a Russian president who seems to want to spread his Russian influence across two states that are in their orbit to become a more popular world power. The thing that's prevented him mostly from doing that over the past 20 or so years is fucking NATO. NATO kind of needs to hang around, guys. Just saying.
Let me read a statement. That breaks down everything Brad said and proves that he's wrong based on nothing. There is no solution through war or further intervention. This crisis requires an immediate international anti-war response demanding de-escalation, international cooperation, and opposition to unilateral coercive measures, militarization, and other forms of economic and military brinkmanship that will only exacerbate the human toll of this conflict. So says the Democratic Socialist. All right. Much like we sometimes do videos, let's go through that statement and we'll stop at certain parts that we have direct comments on. So I'll start reading this again. There is no solution through war or further intervention. Stop. The country is being invaded. What the fuck do you want them to do? Talk it out with Russia? Does Russia seem like the type of people who are going to just listen to your fucking words, or will they respond to a military response? Go ahead, Brad.
I know the answer to this question, Jay. It's a simple solution, and I don't know why you haven't even thought of it yet. There is one way that we could solve this whole conflict, and we wouldn't have to fire. Nobody would have to fire a single shot, Jay.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Is it putting roses in everyone's Twitter profiles?
No, that's ridiculous. Obviously, that the way you end a war that way is only with bottles of Pepsi. No, the way that this conflict can be solved is universal healthcare.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
If the Russians had universal healthcare, they wouldn't have fucking gone to Ukraine. They went to Ukraine to steal their universal healthcare. What are you talking about?
They'd all be able to get new livers for free without having to worry about it at all.
That's fair. They're gonna fucking need it. It's only recently that vodka is no longer labeled as a soda drink in Russia. Those fucking lunatics. It goes on to say the crisis requires an immediate international anti-war response demanding de-escalation, international cooperation, and opposition to unilateral coercive measures, militarization, and other forms of economic and military brinkmanship. Wow, that is a huge run-on sentence.
They do. So again, they talk. I want to focus on the de-escalation and international cooperation part of it.
Yeah.
Again, you do get DSA. That is literally the point of NATO, is to keep it's not to fucking swing a hammer at somebody and to knock them down. It's to fucking hold the hammer up and be like, hey, if you fucking come over here, we're gonna swing this fucking hammer at you, you sons of bitches.
Like shit, that's a big ass hammer. We gotta knock it off.
They are the de-escalating factor.
Yes.
Like the fact that they prevent the escalation from happening in the first place. And you might say, oh, a lot of good that did because Putin's fucking invading Ukraine. He's invading Ukraine because he's afraid of Ukraine falling into NATO.
That's what he's afraid of. Like, it's fundamental. The reason he's invading Ukraine is because he's like, NATO is so big and I don't want these guys in my backyard. That shows you NATO has power in and of itself. He's not saying, I don't want them to be a part of NATO because I think they're going to start a military strike. No, he doesn't want a culturally very similar country to his to then become in, because you got to remember, not only did they want to be in NATO, like NATO's, join NATO, but they wanted to specifically be in the European Union. That is how all of this started. So he doesn't want like Russia Jr. You can look over the fucking fence and it's like these kids are dancing and having a great time with all this freedom. And meanwhile, his people who are very culturally similar are eating fucking bread and sadness all day. And they're like, oh, fuck, that looks pretty nice. Yeah, it would do very bad for him to have a country that close and that culturally similar to then be in the European Union. Because guess what? Russians, while also Asian, are also European. Like, it's a weird thing. I don't know why we didn't. I
would argue mostly European based on where the population centers are focused. So.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, it's weird that we were like, oh, Russia's in Europe and Asia. Just pick one. Knock it off. But like, it is just that fucking simple. So, at a fundamental level, they don't want them to be in fucking NATO. Like, so when you're like, oh, it's military brinkmanship and stuff like that, you're missing the point of why all of this even fucking started. Again, this is definitely on brand for them because, again, people who are, put roses in their fucking account and they're like, I'm a part of the DSA. You don't get shit either. Like, that's the problem. You don't pay attention to what the fuck is actually going on. You talk about things that you wish were happening, not what is happening. Yes, we wish there didn't have to be economic and military brinkmanship, but you have to do those things when you're trying to protect a country from being fucking invaded. You don't just sit by. This is like the idea that you would sit by and just let the tanks roll in because you don't want to fucking say anything is fucking stupid. This is what happened with Nazism, dude.
I didn't want to say anything. I've never known any negative outcome of imperialism in history that I can point to personally. So,
like, if you sit by, what do you think happens? You think Putin is like, all right, cool. So I'm gonna annex Crimea. I'm gonna go into Georgia. We'll do Ukraine. Then we'll stop. Ooh. You think that's gonna be it?
We're done. You don't think they're looking at Poland like?
If you look far enough back,
Poland was cool. Poland was fucking awesome. We're bringing it back.
Yeah,
like back together, guys. Woo!
Like that was like a super long time ago. It wasn't that long ago. We're coming, right? It's like
ask fucking Meemaw how cool the fucking Cold War was. I'm sure she could tell you.
Right, like this. The DSA is fucking useless. Like, when it comes to things like this, I'm not saying they're completely useless. They have very good points when it comes to domestic policies and things like that. Stick to that. This is out of your fucking wheelhouse. Because look, does anybody want people dying? No. How many people do you think would be dead in Ukraine right now if they didn't have the backing of the rest of the fucking world? How many, dude? I saw that they bombed like an area where all of like 20 of their universities are and everything else. Like, they were literally giving a speech at the UN. Like, it was translated or whatever, because obviously Zelensky is in Ukraine. But the translator was reading it. He's Ukrainian. He's reading this in English. He's translating Zelensky in English. And he's going through and he's talking about how they're bombing all these universities where all these young people are and everything else. He got choked up. The fucking translator, not Zelensky. The fucking translator got choked up because he's watching his people die. You think that shit wouldn't be worse? You think it wouldn't be fucking worse if Putin was like, we can't push too hard here? What are you talking about? Stop talking about shit that you wish were fucking true. Talk about the realities of what are true. This is the classic issue I have with the far left. Stop talking about your wishes and your wants. We get it. I wish I had $1 billion and a blowjob machine, but I don't. I only have $100. So like,
and a blowjob
machine. So like the idea of that is like, you talk about the things that are in reality. And to say that the United States should leave NATO is naive at best. Naive at best, absolutely ridiculous at worst. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Incredibly fucking myopic view of foreign policy in general. And again, like it's kind of funny because like these are the same folks who advocate rightfully for making sure that human rights are accessible to everyone across the world. Like I'm sure they look at what goes on in fucking Middle Eastern countries and how they treat women and homosexuals and things of that nature, and they're like, yeah, this is fucking bullshit. And the way
and they're right
that
they're right.
Yes. And the way that you help foster that same sense of wants and ideals across the globe is by getting into alliances like this. And while NATO is effectively a military alliance, it does unite these countries together. It fosters a sense of cooperation, which is really fucking important to make sure that we kind of maintain the status quo in the world in terms of imperialism, like in terms of people not trying to stretch out beyond their means. Because again, you can look at the history of the fucking world prior to World War II and through World War II. And what is that of? Giant power, fucking ruling the roost somewhere, usually in Europe, and they see a piece of land and they're like, God said I could have that. Let's fucking roll. Let's do it. It's ours now. That literally was the fucking known world. The fucking written world that we have is basically a big fucking territory, takes over a small fucking territory and becomes a bigger fucking territory. And then eventually they get into war with another big fucking territory. And then eventually there's civil uprising within the territory, and then they split up into smaller territories. And then they become a huge territory again because someone fucking gets a wild hair up their ass and starts rolling fucking horses out to conquer people that can't defend themselves. The fact that NATO exists and the fact that NATO continues to exist is why that shit doesn't fucking happen anymore.
Just stick to domestic policies, Joe. Just stick to domestic policies because I get it. I truly, by the way, you're 100% right about that. Like, I truly understand wanting to be, to take the hard stance. And it is a hard stance because you have to take that stance no matter what, the hard anti-war stance. I am personally not a person who goes, look, I don't want wars, but I do think that sometimes you might have to fight them, right? Like, well, you can be anti-war all you want. Would you be anti-war in 1934? I wouldn't be. Like, no, dude. Like, this guy
You can be anti-starting a war. Like being anti-starting a war is a perfectly viable fucking position.
Right. That's absolutely okay.
I don't want the U.S. to be the country that's kicking shit off. I agree with you. But if somebody else fucking kicks shit off and we need to get involved because it's in our fucking collective interest to do so,
then you have
because the greater good of the fucking world, of the global society, hangs in the balance. Then we need to fucking handle that shit. And it's going to suck because it's going to cost a lot of fucking money and it's going to get a lot of fucking American people killed. But it's a fuck of a lot better than Hitler being the fucking global world leader in 1945.
Right.
I'd say. And murdering tens of millions, 20 millions of Jews around the world, which would have definitely fucking happened if the Axis powers had won the war.
Yep. But hey, man.
So
we should probably just not worry about it because our dream is to be fucking perfect. Yeah, our dream is also to have no wars and everything be sunshine and rainbows, but that's not the world. Talk about the world that you're in, not the world that you wish you were in. Like, save that for an academic paper of hey, this is the world that we wish existed. I'd read that paper. I'd be like, this is a lovely fucking human examination. I kind of love it, and I wish we lived there. But don't, in the midst of this, don't say shit this stupid. It's stupid. And the person who wrote that for the DSA should be fucking ashamed of themselves because all it does is ignore reality. That's all it does. All right, cool. The U.S. gets out of NATO. What it does. Yeah, the U.S. gets out of NATO. Cool. You guys cool? The DSA, you're cool with the hundreds of thousands of fucking Ukrainians who get murdered? Right? As NATO breaks apart because their biggest fucking, their biggest guy, the biggest gun, leaves? What does that say about NATO? You think Europe could keep keep that shit at bay? No, dude, they can't. So you'd be cool with that. Well, I mean, the price of freedom is something I'm willing to let someone else pay for. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, that's what fucking boils down to at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah. Fuck them, dude. Like,
and you make it, and when you say dumb shit like that, like, you make it harder for your fucking side to gain a foothold in domestic politics to get the things that you actually are right-minded about.
Yeah.
To fucking come to fruition.
Yeah, because the second someone goes, "Oh, the Democratic Socialists of America, they have a lot of really good ideas about socialism or about like Medicare for all and all this stuff," and it's like, that's cool. Didn't they say that we shouldn't have backed Ukraine and gotten out of NATO? I mean, they did say that. Yeah, go fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves. That's all people hear. Just go fuck yourselves. I'm not trying to hear that. Yeah. So no, it is a prime example. It is a prime example of an organization that people back, proving just how stupid they are, and the people who back them so religiously, the reason they have views that make no sense in reality. Fish rots from the head, because that shit doesn't make any sense either. Cool. Good job, DSA. What a fucking waste. Stick to domestic policies. This other shit is not your goddamn wheelhouse. It just isn't. Okay, that's the end of the free portion for this week's episode of Look Forward. Make sure you go to lookforwardshow.com/premium. Sign up for premium content. It's only $5 a month or $50 for the full year.